So I finished the next two Goei titles. The first one's a fan disc that unlocks a prequel, so I guess there's enough that I wouldn't really call it a fan disc, because that you have to finish every other route or every other story to unlock the prequel. And while I like some of the after stories, they're garbage compared to the prequel, so I'll be spoiling things here and there, and a good chunk of the after stories are kind of ass, but they're either there to show what Kaito's good at, or to show that he has like his own quirks and trauma, and then go through it all in the prequel, right? Like going with Tai is just Kaito going over some like specialized engineering 101, and Tai is just as retarded as in the original title, but Kaito is interested in this engineering crap. Like you assumed maybe she's just an idiot savant and this was like her one good subject and she's like pretending to be bad at it because she doesn't want to like tell people, or she's like, nah, I don't want to do the same thing that my mom does or something like that. But nah, there's like no second level drama with the family. She's just bad at everything. Like they even gave her a 101 quiz on the easiest shit ever and it was still pretty fun how bad she is. So Kaito's learning it so he can like dumb it down for Tai, but the progress is really slow. And eventually he hits an academical wall and struggles for a while, and Tai gets annoyed and it's like, oh, I'm being neglected, well, you're not paying attention to me, and all this is to get Tai like up and running so they can fix Yuki, who like broke apart in the first title. Yuki's like an android type thing. And this is all to show that like Kaito could have been a scholar if his foundation was a little less shit. Granted, he got some hell mode version of like the stereotypical Asian parenting. He just got hit, like beat up a lot. It's like they read up on Sparta and thought it was really rad and replicated and just added more beatdowns for no reason. Like, hey, if 20 beatdowns does this, imagine if we do like 100. Holy shit, Mega Warrior. And it's kind of the same with Kyoka. Honestly, it's like 10 minutes of anything worthwhile. Well, technically, it also has a part where he's forced to eat some weird shit, and apparently the only other person that ate it died. But Kaito was sick for like a few days, and then did like his own physical therapy, and everybody, like, but especially the fancy ass doctor was shocked because Kaito should have been like knocked out for a month, and it's like, how the fuck are you still up? Holy shit. Moi's route focuses on like fighting and constant awareness of his surroundings, and Suki's like the route I like, but she's basically like the joke character that's always breaking the fourth wall with Kaito. The route is about her trauma and how both her and Kaito can't sleep in the dark and all that. It's like, I liked it a lot, but also it's just because I like Suki a lot, so it's like, it's what it is. Anyways, that's all done, and the prequel is just about Kaito living in the special ward in the prohibited zone, and how his dad is like a monster, and that dude is training Kaito and beats his ass if he fails. Dude is making Kaito jump off like 6-floor high buildings and making him scavenge for his own food, and then makes him answer from like some ethical question shit while doing his like 3 hours of training every day, and just punches his stomach if he takes too long to answer. It's like, you're too slow, fucking dumbass. And it's like, holy shit, man, he's training for 3 hours already. And the whole time he's like, I don't have to explain shit, and you could refuse my orders, but you're gonna just die because you're still weak and I'm like the alpha guy, right? The dad's orders just kept going more extreme, but Kaito keeps going on and it's like succeeding because the dude doesn't want to die, and he'll like manage to live through all of it if he's like, oh, I'm strong enough, I can do it, until he finally fails, and you're basically just reading like berserk for a good while. Like, this part just kept on going on and on. Holy shit. The rest of it is important for the sequel, but this was probably what I call like the highlight of the title. The rest of it is about Anzu and some characters you meet in the sequel, like a girl with white hair that shows up here and there but never ages. And then there's Akira, who's like a freaking psycho. Technically, all of these characters are important to the sequel in varying degrees, but more so Akira, and I'll cover that later on. So on to Goei 3. For a good while, I saw this as like kind of like Goei 1 again. It's more comedic, and there's like huge chunks where really nothing's happening. It's more like a show called like the daily life of Kaito. It never got annoying, but it almost felt comical with them like showing like what's going to happen in a month in advance, and they placed like the slowest drip feeder of content ever for you. It's like, holy shit, this is back, and it's like, here's another 2 lines of what's going to happen later on, but for now let's go back into funny mode. So it starts with a report on this helicopter talking about how the cops are invading the prohibited zone to squash like the shit once and for all. And I'll get back to that later, but basically it's just saying that all hell will break loose in August, but until then it's Kaito and shenanigans at around mid-June all the way to August. Introduces some new characters, most are fucking useless. It's a massive edgeathon, constantly bringing up little tidbits here and there that'll be relevant for later on. And to be fair, most of it's actually also useless. Most of the characters introduced will end up being useless outside of like filling out the world, making it more believable, and I guess reinforcing the undertone that it tries to set up for Kaito. Basically being like the real thing that you can just miss, because otherwise like, oh, that was funny, and that's it. And it's like, oh, So like at the start, it's mainly shenanigans, but you meet Kiyomi, Sun's older sister that's a detective. It's the normal archetype where she's overly stiff and doesn't gel well with Kaito because he's like a freaking dumbass, right? But he doesn't care anyway. But after that, she has nothing to do in the plot for the longest time ever. All you know is she's important for August and that's it. And until then, she's trying to find like people that cross over from the prohibited zone and like put them in jail. Or she's like trying to get more leads, like what are they trying to do? What's their plan? And until then, it's like, all right, that's all she does. So at this point, the story continues where it ended on Kaoru's route from Goe 1. It was basically a side route, but now more fleshed out, and a subset of the cast is now cheering Kaito on, like, hey, bring him back. And the whole idea is she's going to get married off, so Kaito is going to barge in and win the competition, except his ass gets lost and arrives like a few days late, like a dumbass. I think I mentioned it before, Kaoru's not a guy, but everybody thinks he is. He meets Kaoru's younger brother who decides to help him out. And well, you technically meet the whole family throughout the whole arc, but none of them are actually important. Like Moe's granddad is a side character, but he's important. Genzo is important. Kaoru's family is not. It's just like world building. It's like, hey, this is like famous popular family and this is their trainers and their bodyguards and they train to be bodyguards and that's it. And I guess the most important parts are like 2 lines from her mom or Kaoru's mom that tries to reinforce like Kaito's theme again. It's like, hey, he's already set up, he's good, he's strong, you know, nothing's ever gonna beat him, and like that's it. Anyways, outside of that, you meet 3 other characters, Naoto, Ryu, and Shion. Naoto is another one of like Sun's older siblings and a massive waste of time outside of being like a more comedic partner for Kaito to bounce off of. And he's great on that. You'd think he'd be more relevant in the end, but not really. You do see him here and there, and you do get a scene where he invites you to lunch with Sun and Kiyomi, but it doesn't really help bridge Kiyomi and Kaito's relationship at all for her own route. It's like, why are you even here? He's funny, but not really a character at this point. It's more like, hey, he's also important. This is why his family's rich and shit like that. Anyways, Ryu and Shion don't fare much better. They're kind of just there. Their main use is just that they're like half Chinese and the Japanese side of their family were assholes to them, and those two didn't feel like they belonged to Japan and crap like that, and they were treated like as like lesser beings. And that's just to make the parallel with Kaito's life on how he'll always be seen as like a lesser person to most people if they found out he lived in like the prohibited zone. And that's actually pretty good, but Shion's route just randomly ends after that was shown, and like everything is going to be okay because Kaito doesn't give a shit on what other people think, and Shion finds him endearing and dumb, especially fucking dumb. Like this would have been a better route if her character and Ryu were introduced in like the second title. You could say that'd be a little weird like plotline wise because of course they're not there yet, right? But really you get a route for Kyoka in the second title, and she's an overall useless character. It's had to use like as a reason for why Anzu's even around. Kyoka is actually still in the third title but does nothing. You rarely see her outside of the mini beach arc, and then she's gone again before the finale. More of it, she's fine. I like her. Not because of her at all, because Raita's there. Raita's just a mess. So Raita's funny to me because he's kind of a loser. But her like she's like, yeah, why are you here? Go away. So Kyoka's around the same levels like Ryu and Shion. They get invited to events here and there, but overall not important outside of just like enforcing that Kaito can lead any type of life he chooses, because he's strong enough in the ways that matters to him. It's like kind of like the Naruto thing where they have like a parallel with him and Gaara, but after a while I felt like there's a ton of Naruto slash like Gaara's, and they're all just reinforce the theme again of like, hey, life's kind of shit sometimes. Anyway, during the Kaoru arc, it jumps back and forth between what Kaito's doing and what's happening in like the Nikkaidos. Basically, Akira, a character that was like introduced in the second title, is now being placed as a temporary bodyguard for Reika. While Kaito's off in the Kaoru arc, it's a whole like Gus versus Griffith type of scenario with these two. Really, it's more like Akira versus L type of thing, but these two are more of like the strength slash brutal side that's more like they're just conniving enough to not be called brutes. Technically, Akira's named the Ryo now. There's a plot point on why that is, but honestly, I don't think they were even trying to hide that he was Akira. Sure, the hair color's different, but the mannerisms are still there, and I'm pretty sure they bring it up immediately once Kaito returns and sees them. It's like, what the fuck are you doing here for? During that time, there's been characters introduced all over the place. There's like Seiyo and Koharu and Hayashi. Seiyo's fucking, I don't know why she was even included, but these three I kind of absolutely hate because I kept waiting for something and nothing actually materialized with these three. If it was like a couple of other characters where Kaito and the others just bounce off each other and it's just shit talking, and it's great because it's funny, but Hayashi's just a weaker Kaito with no humor in his fucking bones. It's just an asshole that every time he gets brought up, it's from Seiyo asking Kaito for help on something regarding Hayashi. It's like, oh my god, you again. And I guess I'll skip ahead a bit where there's really like a third arc where Kaito is technically on the enemy side this time. It'll be on the spoilers. And throughout the whole time, I thought Hayashi would pop up randomly because his mindset kind of works better over there, but nothing happens. I guess it makes sense considering he's not all that strong to compete with all like the higher level goons. Like the dude was getting massacred by this guy, Kongo, and Kaito just had to stop it. I wish he just would have died, right? But and then someone stopped Kongo and everybody was relieved because like, holy shit, Kongo would have destroyed Kaito. But I think it was like a Kemi and she's like, nah man, Kongo would have died super fast. So Kongo, who's basically forced Hayashi into being like his own bitch, is still just a jobber compared to Kaito. But Hayashi still thinks he's hot shit and he's not. I hate this guy. This is like if Nishiki had a Nishiki, but Nishiki 2 thinks he can still wipe out Kiryu. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Just go away. Holy shit. This guy is probably the worst character in the title. Even the villains can be more charming or at least entertaining than this guy. Holy crap. And there's like a lot of bad people in there. It's like at least something happened. You're just a dumbass. He doesn't know how to stay in his own lane. This is like if Son wasn't treated as like the butt of the joke half the time and was treated as like as a hard ass, and then you would hate Son too, but because everybody makes fun of him and he becomes endearing because of that. This guy, nah. To make it worse, there's technically a throwaway side route for Seiyo that shows up after doing like a Kemi's route, and it's also fucking ass. It could have been good in a comedic sense, like in one part of Dokusei, where if you choose to do Misa's section, Miho's route gets blocked, right? But if you still try to go for Miho, the guy that was going for her just keeps on showing up in like different areas and just makes fun of you and glows like, haha, I got Miho, and it was funny. And if the last 2 minutes, because it's like an H scene and like 2 minutes of whatever, right, of Seiyo's route was just shitting Hayashi and how dumb his ass was and how now Seiyo hates him and everything, and now like Hayashi just walks away, never to be seen. I will laugh my ass off because this guy's just a loser. But nah, it's like he's not being used at all. It's fucking horrible. Holy shit. Okay, rant aside, the last couple of characters that get involved or introduced are like Pseudo, Shoku, or Shoko, I forgot, and Ando. Also, the white-haired girl from the second title is back and gets called Haku. So it's like she lost her memories and she's just around until like the third section of the title. Until then, she just like hangs out with Aya and like in the mansion and just does random shit. But otherwise, she's not really important until the third section. Honestly, a lot of characters re-emerge in the third section. Pseudo gets screen time in Kiyomi's route. He's one of the higher ups from the group that's going to like cause shit in August. He wants a deal to get to like remove his crime sentence and just be free, but Kiyomi isn't up for that shit. Like, hell no. Ando's also in that route, and it was pretty funny to me because I thought that dude was just like another guy from the org, from the evil org, I guess, but ended up being one of like Kiyomi's co-workers. And it's mainly because he was such a little pussy that it was just going to be like I assumed it was going to be a joke that he's actually like really big dick evil dude that's after like Haku or something. It's like, no, he's just a cop. Technically Mai also shows up for like one damn scene. Mai's like another character in the third section, and then you never see her ass again until right at the third section. Like, okay. And there was like a Kemi's working for them, but not really, and like I thought she'd have a way larger role in the third section, but she didn't. But it makes sense considering her route was already done in the second section, and I won't go over her route. It's actually probably one of the better ones that just gets like sullied here and there with fucking Hayashi Sakaya. Can you leave? Holy shit. And it's not like the Kemi's route is all that long either. It's one of the shorter ones. But what it has, like, hey, this was fun. This is a good Kaito route. So skipping way ahead because a lot of what happens between the Karu arc and the third section is like a lot of filler. There's still important bits here and there, but it's pretty minimal. Like for the first time, you're basically railroaded into Reika's bad ending. And I pretty much picked every like Karu option and it didn't matter at all. I was like, no, fuck you. You're getting Reika's bad ending. And the ending is honestly not that bad until you finish the other routes of this section. You finally finish like Reika's good ending, because the amount of extra time between the bad ending and the good ending is fucking minimal. It's maybe like 10 minutes, not even 10, it's like 5 minutes of different scenes. So if you're like a fan of Reika, you see your ass die, then you're forced to go through like a couple different routes, and I'm not sure which ones are mandatory. I'm pretty sure it's like at least Akemi and Karu, to then go back into Reika's route, and then this time things work out even though your choices are like 5% different. And what's worse is most of the new stuff was already shown in Karu's route, with like, they just removed Karu's parts out and left the ones that wasn't really a part of like Karu. It's like, alright, good enough. And then maybe like an extra 5 minutes at the end, which is also really dumb, but I'll talk about that later. I don't really know what's canon or not, and I'm assuming it's the Reika's ending. Otherwise, it might be like Haku's ending way down the line in third section, and you could be saying like, hey, Reika's ending is in section 2, but there's this whole other section going on, so of course Reika's ending isn't canon. But really, the third section isn't all that important technically to Kaito in the long run, so he can handle it without like any stuff he learned over there. Like how Kaito understands more of what's going on in Reika's route in the original title, but none of that actually happened for a second title, because it goes off with like Kaoru's part of Moe's route, right? It never happened, even though technically it was the most like plot relevant route in there. But yeah, most of the third section stuff will be in the spoilers, because it is maybe, I wouldn't want to say it's 1/3 of the whole thing. It would make sense if it is, but it's not. A lot of the filler section was a massive part of the thing, so you could say like 20% and 20%, and then there's a massive 60% as the filler. Overall, nothing really matters in this title in regards to Kaito himself, and that's because he doesn't really care. How he was nurtured in the zone and the small like bit of societal discipline on the other, like the normie side I guess, made him to a more like jokey but stoic character. And the whole thing's like, hey, is he fine? And if so, are his friends fine? Then he's good. He's been built to survive most of anything that could be thrown at him, and that was basically what his dad was going for. Sure, he's a piece of shit and mentally fucked over Kaito forever, but nothing could ever win over Kaito now. He's like a beast. And that's really what his dad wanted for him, because that's what he was considered to make someone strong and on top, where nothing could take like their shit away. Like how his own important shit was stripped away from him. So I was like, hey, I won't have my kid having the same issues I had, even though it's like worse issues. It's still all a massive asshole, and Kaito realistically should have died like every other week with how he was treated with him. Basically, nothing can take what he owns away. He knows the lines he can and can't cross, and most of those lines are like political shit. But it's not like he wants any kind of status. He could be like a construction worker. He doesn't care. As long as he gets money to provide for things, he's good. He doesn't care about his job. As long as he can live on, he's good, right? And that's kind of Kaito's MO throughout the second and third title. It doesn't matter if Genzo finally fires him because he's such a dumbass. He'll just do something else. He's not above doing like dirty work, and that was pretty much most of his life anyway. There's this whole route in the Kemi thing. It was like, yeah, he was kind of is on the border of illegal or not, and he's fine with it. The dude would get like the death penalty if society ever figures out everything he ever did. Though that part didn't really make much sense in the like grand scheme of things, considering it's in like, oh, it's a lawless zone and you can't be charged with anything. He'll still go to the like institute that they talk about, and you pretty much be captured there, just stay there for the rest of his life. So basically still fucked, but it's not because of what he did. It's just like, well, you lived over there, you get this penalty. The dude is like Kakashi, except even more lazy. The guy isn't Hokage anymore in this one, and it's like, hey, it's not my problem unless shit really hits the fan and things are going to like affect him personally, or the people he cares about are gonna die, or they're like, I'll jump up. But otherwise, fuck it. I'll leave other people doing things. I don't care. Like Kaito rarely acts on anything unless Anzu or Reika got caught in some shit, and he's just doing the, oh, here we go again, walk again. But really, that's why most of his routes just kind of randomly end, because he doesn't have any grandiose plans for his life. You know, he's alive, and the person he wants to take care of is also happy. And it's like, hey, that's all he really wants. It's good. So in terms of plot, it's kind of whatever. The world building in itself is pretty well done, but the only reason to really read these titles is for the comedy and the shit talking bounce between like Kaito and his group. Like at most, the third section talks a lot more about like society and like political shit. It's interesting, but really, that's not what Kaito is about. So onto the spoilers. Like I said before, Akira and Ryo are the same person, but the real Ryo was killed a while ago, and Akira is just using his identity. The kicker is that they were both related, and all these people are like kids of Igarashi, this famous like politician that left the scene a while ago. Now Igarashi is running the scene in the prohibited zone, and they're like the group that's going to cause shit on August, and the whole third section is Kaito getting captured and imprisoned over there, and he gets tortured by Mai, another one of like Igarashi's kids, but she gets pissed off that his mental is never breaking. It's like, why the fuck not? And she eventually just gives up. Not really, but she's like, holy shit, this guy is crazy, right? So a lot of shit happens, and Kaito meets up with Igarashi, and Kaito gets to be one of like the captains, or I think they're called leaders, except he only has like 4 people under him, and one of them is Anzu. And the whole thing is because Ryo tricked Anzu. It's like, oh, Kaito's back into the zone, and she goes there, and then she goes to Kaito's like, hey, she's in the zone, and she's going to get berserked again. It's like, oh shit. And he goes in there, but he has like high ass fever, and he fights off like 20 people, then just falls over, and this guy, I think Kongo, was about to beat the shit out of him because he just fell over. Then Mai comes in like, nah, it's my pet now, I'm gonna play with this guy, and she tortures him the whole time. She's like, and that's what happens, right? Anyway, the reason why Igarashi gave him the position is because he sensed the big dick energy, but really it's because Kaito at this point already had like experience on both sides, and he can be groomed into like either Igarashi's way of thinking or something else entirely of his own. And because his whole his as in Agarashi's whole thing is he wants more people capable of leading because he thinks everybody's a bitch over there. Basically someone that can make decisions quickly and be as ruthless as they need to do what they want to do. Anytime it's about Kaito and Igarashi, it's interesting and like the highlight of the third section. Too bad that's like maybe 10%, maybe 20%. Like he's just a different version of a weirdo and he has his own like gags that he tries to pass off as being serious. Like I think I said it right. In the sense that he's totally serious, but anybody reading this like, what the fuck is he talking about? He's just a weirdo. He's basically like a cult leader that knows he's going to lose. It's part of his theme. It's because he's ready to lose, but he wants to change how he loses or how people perceive it, or at least how the public sees the events happening. So he wants to change the ideas like, oh, they're assholes, they're terrorists, they're destroying the town, into something like, oh, they're a group that got fucked over by their government to the point that it got this bad. And if they didn't fuck it that much, this would never happen. So it's more of a way to get a couple politicians to forcefully retire or to change some policies to save their asses for it. He's doing the whole like Joker scene where he's burning the money. It's like, oh, it's about sending a message. Another one of his gags, he keeps wondering who's gonna bang Mai and make strong offsprings. Not only his kids, like other people's kids too. It's like, hey, you need to make kids, strong kids. And he's like, he wouldn't mind it if it was Kaito. It's like, hey, strong guy, strong lady, strong kids. We need more of these people. And he's all for it all the time. It's like, hell yeah. In Mai's route, which is pretty short, same thing. He's like, he's all for it. Mai's like Kaito if his dad only physically trained him like the whole time and nothing else. Mainly an attack dog that aggroes all over the place. The funny part is her voice actor also the Michiru from Grisaya, so she's always playing like a mentally fucked up character. It's pretty funny. Sure, Mai is fine, but also doesn't really get the limelight because there's so many damn characters in this third section and they just keep shoving more in. Even characters that already had routes, but they have like their own little cameo here. It's like, hey, they show up, they're important, but then they just, some of them like leave, some of them get captured, some of them die. Like there's a character called Kaede, Soma's kid, and you technically meet Soma in the second title for like 10 seconds, but he's the interesting character, and Kaede's just kind of there. She doesn't really have to exist. Sure, she makes Karu's route a little longer, and kind of, at least something's happening, but for the bigger picture, she really does nothing, which is kind of the whole thing that Igarashi's saying, like none of these people are useful. It's like the whole, as a collective, it's like, hey, we all get nuked this one way and the public sees it and it'll change their minds or change how they're thinking. The normal people here, none of the guys actually matter. Like there's this big fat guy that berserked Kaito from the second one, and he's technically one of the leaders, but he's not all that strong, but he has like all these connections, so that's why he's like a honorary leader, I guess. All the gay members end up going into his own group, and it's really weird that this guy ended up being like a half a danger all the time, half a comedic relief character, but it's also just to do with Kaito's character, and like the fat guy can't do anything to Kaito anymore. This dude just like some Aizen level shit, I guess. Like, all right, I can't even beat this guy anymore. It's like, oh, we're not friends, and this guy always wants Kaito to fuck him in the ass. It's weird. It's like a role reversal thing. It's like, yeah, man, you're the one, you're the top dog now. Pseudo is back. Technically, he was around Kiyomi's route as like the beginner villain, but most of his stuff shows up here, where he technically worked with Haku for a while, and he's the catalyst of why Hasaki became the way he is. Masaki's Kaito's dad. I don't know if I ever mentioned it. He was killed off in the second one, but it was so bullshit. I don't think anybody reading it actually believed this. So Pseudo tricks Masaki and rapes his wife right before he has to leave for the zone for a while, and he ended up being captured, and that's where he's still at the beginning of like the third title's plot. Really, he was infiltrating like the police squad, and he eventually got caught. He got ratted out. And that's how Haku's tied to all this. She was also a cop at one point, but she never aged, and she always looks like a little kid. And she was either always sick or she got sick, and she had like a temporary alliance with Pseudo and killed Kaito's mom as like a final request. But Kaito was there, and she's like, oh shit. But seeing Kaito, she used like, okay, I'm gonna use the rest of my life to monitor him and like check how he's doing, which is kind of fucked up because we know Masaki was like monitoring the whole time Kaito was getting berserked when he was a kid. When Kaito was being a kid, right? But I guess so was Haku. She didn't do anything. And the idea was that Masaki was just keeping tabs to make sure Kaito wouldn't die, but nothing else. Kaito is fine with this because he understands the whole survival of the fittest, and everybody gets used when it comes to like the special ward. So he's like, all right, it is what it is. And her route is all about like how Kaito wants the remaining time that she has to be like an enjoyable one. And most of these routes end up really suddenly because the focus is always back on Kaito and his mindset. They're just plot tools for the most part. Karu and Akemi are probably the two that have some kind of emphasis to them specifically. And it's like, I like the Akemi's route, but just barely in it too. Anyways, Pseudo's back, like I said, and he came back for the plea deal again, but really it was to kill this one person that ratted him out. But Masaki shows up and kills his ass from what I remember. I know he wrecked the Kemi earlier, but I'm pretty sure he did the same for Pseudo. And it's been a couple weeks when I read it. Masaki feels like an asshole anytime he fucking shows up. There's really no reason for his existence inside the plot after like the second title. It's one of those things where I feel like he'll always show up in every other sequel of this like universe, and we never get to like understand the full image of what's actually happening. Like technically there's I think there's 2 or 3 of the titles. I think the first one's like Reminiscence or something, where it's not about Kaito anymore, but Kaito's in the plot. So maybe Masaki's also in the plot and it reveals a lot more shit happening. I don't know. I'm pretty sure the guys translated like the Kaito section, but I also don't want to get the whole title just to read like maybe an hour's worth or something. I don't know. And that's basically it. I don't know what the next one is. I've been kind of lazy with reading shit. I've read a lot of short titles and none of them are really like interesting enough to write something about. Maybe it'll be like the Susaku Kanasho thing, but I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where it'll be interesting until the common route ends.